Good evening, Zimbabwe. This is Change Radio. Today is Tuesday, 11th of June, 2024. The news read by Barbara Kongwara and the stories making the headlines. In support of President Nelson Chamisa, ZINASU leader calls for change in criteria for presidential selection. It's not the first time where political parties were banned, Honorable Siziba says. City of Bulawayo renovations done in a Chinese business style. And now for the stories in detail. President Chamisa continues to inspire young people. In a video seen by Change Radio, a ZINASU leader calls for a change in the criteria for presidential selection. He argued that the current process excludes young people whose issues are often ignored by the government. Let's hear him speak.
Kuti munhu ange ari in the youth group afanga pakati makore 15 to 35 asi tinoona zvekare kuti vanhu ava they are being excluded from the decision making process, in the sense that for one to contest in the presidential as the presidential candidate, he or she must be 40 years and above, which means that the youth are being excluded from that position, and we are going to continue having the old age in the same position. As my youth, since the highest population within this nation, to implement a policy not include someone who is below 35 on the presidential post. So that would be my issues at a national level. The government the old people what is affecting the youth.
In supporting President Chamisa's position to dump CCC, Honorable Siziba said that CCC was hijacked by ZANU-PF. This made President Chamisa to be left with no option than to leave the CCC. He said it's not the first time where political parties were banned in the history of Zimbabwe. Let's hear him speaking.
In 2019, a letter went to the Speaker of Parliament, they called members of Parliament. Yeah. We wrote a counter, they said, no, this one has no mandate. They said, no, he has the mandate. Right? In 2023, a charlatan writes a letter to the Speaker. We write to them, we say, no, this one doesn't have a mandate. They say he has a mandate. Right? It is basically a state institution that say we are going to choose who we want to listen to. It happened when we structures, it happened when tell you that the narrative that has been put out there to justify criminality is not correct. Right? It's a wrong narrative. It has been sponsored to try and justify why there's been criminal taking over of an organization that we built. You have to understand that ours is a protected struggle for freedom and democracy. When we signed to be part and parcel of the democratic process in our country, we knew that it's not a one-day wonder. It's a long and winding struggle. And what you see happening to a movement, to some of us students of history, is not new. Remember, like I said to you when we started the conversation, the dictators manual is the same, right? There's nothing new that dictators would do. What you see happening to the PPC happened with Nkomo and ZANU-PF you see today became active before independence. Even Douglas Smith made a declaration. That's why I laugh at ZANU-PF people when they say, no, I'm really talking. I say, what is Zimbabwe an independent state, Southern Rhodesia then. So, but when you are trunking power, it is very difficult to imagine that there can be a transition in society. Smith proceeded, when he said a black man can rule Southern Rhodesia, he proceeded and started banning political parties. So this issue of banning political parties did not start after independence. Smith enacted a law. In fact, I used to submit, and I continue to submit, that the laws that you see today are legacy of colonialism. I'll give an example. POSA did not start with Mugabe. POSA started with Ian Smith as Law and Order Maintenance Act. It was LOMA. Mugabe came into power and said, no, we no longer want LOMA. It was just to ban us. He ran from 1989, moved, and then realized, there's opposition. He said, we're coming with a new law. They went to the shelf of Ian Smith. Said, what is the law that was used to ban political party? It was LOMA, but we don't call it LOMA because we expose our fascist tendencies, and that was like Smith. So let's call it POSA. They called it POSA. Went to Parliament, they started to use it to ban the MDC. So what I'm saying to you is that you ought to understand that they were banned. The ZANU-PF you see today changed names. Komo started with the NDP. They changed names because political parties would get banned and taken off.
The city of Bulawayo is renovating buildings in the central business district. The practice is inspired by the Chinese business practices. This initiative divides buildings into segments to accommodate more businesses and entrepreneurs, creating relatable shops and fostering a vibrant commercial environment. The renovations will generate employment opportunities for young people as new businesses in the CBD will need staff. This job influx will boost the city's economic growth. Dividing buildings into smaller, affordable spaces will benefit the business community by encouraging entrepreneurship and innovation, making Bulawayo more attractive to investors. This revitalization is a positive step towards a thriving business environment, promising a prosperous future for the community. For more details on these developments, our reporter spoke to Bulawayo CCC Ward 9 Councillor Mabuto, and this is what he said.
Thank you very much. This is Councillor Mabuto from the city of Bulawayo. Yeah, most of the buildings, they are being renovated to do what we call lettable shops, modern lettable shops. That is what is currently taking place in most of the corners of the city. They are adopting a Chinese model, where when you go to China, you'll find that most of the shops in China, they are partitioned, you see, to allow business people to have an opportunity to trade.
The announced relaunching of the youth service has received widespread criticism from the general public. One youth leader, Fanel Gona, stated that this initiative is merely a tool to silence opposing voices. He lamented the formation of the youth service, highlighting that it will serve as a means for the government to achieve its objectives. Let's hear him speak.
It's a clear action for His Excellency and the ruling party for trying to thwart again the voices of those who try to oppose, of those who try to seek justice from the government. Why am I saying this? This is the same program, if we trace back in 2001, which was there under border disease during the time of the former President Robert Gabriel Mugabe, which was being used as a tool to silence anyone who tries to criticize the government. We have many victims, we have many comrades We all know that who were persecuted during that time, who were raped during that time, who were butchered during that time, by those so-comrades who were being trained under Buddhism. So this time around, under Emerson Mnangagwa, the president, he has reintroduced the same program, of course with a different name, Youth Service in Zimbabwe. But this is the same program, let's not forget about that. So this time around, he has reintroduced the same thing. But it's now harder for the citizens, it's now harder for us as the youth. Because this time around, it's saying that it's a mandatory. Everyone who wants to enroll in any tertiary institution is supposed to go through under this program. And the worst part of it is that the definition of patriotism was the whole idea about this program, according to his reasoning, is saying that the whole idea about this program is all about making sure that we shape a good ideology about the patriotic. Of which to them, the definition of patriotic is different from the definition that we know. To them, a patriotic is someone who has the principles, who understands the ZANU-PF. That's the patriotic to them. So this time around, they are going to make sure that if this program succeeds, they are going to use this program as a catalyst. They are going to use it as a tool, rather, to make sure that they will achieve their goal. What's their goal? 2030 vision is all about having a one-party system. That's the goal of the ruling party. That's the goal of ZANU-PF. So they are trying by all means to make sure that they will dismiss the fact that Zimbabwe is a democratic country. So as Zimbabweans, we are sliding towards one-party system.
Today, the United Nations representative to Zimbabwe, Miranda Tobifo, pledged the organization's support to ensure that the People with Disabilities Bill is implemented in Zimbabwe during the launch of the Disability Caucus. Let's hear more from her.
Our program has 4 core areas. We are supporting the government to set up a comprehensive and operational coordination mechanism. And I know that we have organizations of persons with disability. If we are not coordinated, Honorable Speaker, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we will have sporadic interventions not being accountable to what we are doing to this important agenda. The second key area of our support is addressing the intersectionality of the stigma and discrimination. We'll talk about non-discrimination. And what we are doing already is to ensure that we address this aspect of discrimination. And then the third core area is to influence the national SDG coordination mechanism. When the speaker spoke, he looked at the global level. And we know each country that has acceded or ratified any United Nations convention has to report. And the United Nations is here to support the government of Zimbabwe towards influencing the SDG coordination mechanism when it shall be presented its report on what they are doing to ensure disability inclusion is on the agenda. And then the fourth area of focus that we are supporting the government in this agenda is to ensure the strengthened capacity of the disabled. We want to include them. We have to monitor. Honorable Speaker, we can have all the programs, but if we don't monitor, we will not be able to be accountable. So the support that we are giving the government through the United Nations Sustainable Cooperation Framework puts also at the center monitoring of what we are doing, and I think it's a very important aspect. And then he went ahead and listed the bills that are in the pipeline in Parliament. And the team, the UN team, put that to remind the caucus, to remind members of Parliament that this bill has to come to fruition. And I remember, Speaker, you said, come and ask for it. Mobilize for that bill to be adopted. And we want to say that the United Nations will stand with the caucus to ensure that that bill that is in the pipeline, the Persons with Disability Bill, that is undergoing the legislative process, is actually adopted.
The close alliance between Mnangagwa and businessman Wikinelo Chivayo raises concerns about unchecked power, lack of transparency, and potential corruption, according to ZAPU. This follows a leaked audio in which Chivayo boasts of his influence over Zimbabwe and promises millions of dollars to his associates. In an interview with a local publication, ZAPU Secretary General Mthulisi Hanana criticized the special treatment of Chivayo, calling for transparency and accountability. Hanana highlighted Chivayo's involvement in opaque deals like the Gwanda Solar Project and the Starlink Internet tender. He expressed doubts about any investigations due to Chivayo's close ties with Mnangagwa. For a fair scrutiny of this, Change Radio spoke to Senator Mafa, and this is what he had to say.
It is intriguing to note that Chivayo has spilled the beans unwittingly, struggling and thinking he is a boss of everybody. But the truth is that nothing under the earth can be hidden for eternity. We are so pleased and congratulate Mr. Chivayo for stating the truth that he has captured the President of Zimbabwe, Honorable Idi Mnangagwa. We've been working on speculations. Many journalists have been working on speculations, but to date, Mr. Chivayo has come crystal clear that he has captured the President of Zimbabwe and partially ZANU-PF. He has been boasting, donating vehicles to individuals, and we wondered how this could be in this meltdown economy. Now the truth has been revealed that he is a blue-eyed man of Mr. Mnangagwa and does whatever he likes. His video is a manifestation of saying he is in control, he is even above the vice presidents, as is how he has been introduced to Mr. Ruto, the president of Kenya, and he is now number 2 to President Mnangagwa as per his assertions. Nonetheless, this is a revelation that Zimbabwe strives on corruption. Only 5% of Zimbabweans are in charge of the economy. 95% are working in abject poverty. This therefore calls for Zimbabweans to rise up, to stand against this ugly, cancerous, corruptive tendencies by the leadership of ZANU-PF. We as the Zimbabweans and political parties across the divide, civic society, churches, women's group, youth groups, students groups, abhor this tendency that has been revealed by Chivayo, and we hope people will stand against it. Thank you.
The opposition member Fadzai Maere, through her X account, has also demanded accountability for Chivayo's connections with the president, calling on the government spokesperson Nick Mangwana to respond to citizens' concerns. The United States' new ambassador to Zimbabwe, Pamela Tremont, was sworn into office in Washington, D.C. on Monday. This marked the ending a wait of over a year for her confirmation. Hearings on her nomination were held before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on March 1, 2023. The committee favorably reported her nomination on May 3, 2023. She was confirmed by the U.S. Senate by voice vote on May 2, 2024, before being officially sworn in as ambassador yesterday. As a continuation of the breaking news reported by Change Radio yesterday, Malawi Vice President Selos Chilima and 9 others were confirmed dead this morning following a plane crash. The aircraft carrying Chilima and 9 others went missing yesterday morning after failing to make a scheduled landing. The search and rescue operation was conducted by the Malawi Defense Forces with support from the United States Department of Defense, which provided a C-12 aircraft to aid in the search efforts. Let's hear part of the speech from Malawi's president confirming this.
Death will in fact come for each one of us, and we will be powerless to stop it. That aircraft is an aircraft I have myself used on similar trips. An aircraft that others had used just the day before. And an aircraft that the crew had just operated successfully just hours before. And yet, despite the track record of the aircraft and the experience of the crew, something terrible went wrong with that aircraft on its flight back to Lilongwe, sending it crashing down and killing everyone on board, and leaving us all devastated and asking ourselves questions whose answers cannot take away the pain.
Yesterday, the UN Security Council approved a US-sponsored resolution endorsing a ceasefire plan to end the 8-month war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. The resolution was backed by 14 members, with Russia abstaining. It calls on both Israel and Hamas to implement the ceasefire without delay. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken urged Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu to accept the plan, while Hamas expressed willingness to work with mediators. Concerns remain over Israel's commitment as they insist on continuing operations until all hostages are released and Hamas is dismantled. The resolution's strong support pressures both parties to agree. It also emphasizes the importance of diplomatic efforts by Egypt, Qatar, and the U.S. to achieve a comprehensive ceasefire and envisions a negotiated two-state solution for Israel and Palestine. In a breaking story just coming in, Zambian outspoken politician Joseph Kalimbwe has been hospitalized in a Windhoek, a medical facility in Namibia, after complaining of stomach pains and passing water and blood. It is suspected that he may have eaten food that had been tampered with. Change Radio will give you more on this tomorrow. On the health front, upper respiratory illnesses are spreading in Zimbabwe this winter. Besides the common cold, there is also COVID-19. Change Radio encourages citizens to take necessary precautions to minimize the spread of these transmissible respiratory diseases, to seek medical help early so they get tested and receive appropriate treatment in a timely manner. And in sports, in the African World Cup qualifiers matches played today in the afternoon, the results are as follows: Madagascar 0, Mali 0, Kenya 0, Ivory Coast 0, South Sudan 0, and Sudan 3. And the most interesting one, the Zimbabwe national soccer team, the Warriors, are still playing against the South Africa's Bafana. To end this bulletin, here are the headlines once more. In support of President Nelson Chamisa, ZINASU leader calls for change in criteria for presidential selection. It's not for the first time where political parties were banned, says Honorable Siziba. So in city of Bulawayo, renovations done in a Chinese business style. From myself and the entire team at Change Radio, we wish you a good night.